Hi everybody, welcome to another automation video. In this video, we're looking at expense tracking. So it's a common problem for most medium to large companies when they're tracking expenses. The existing manual methods can be error prone, they can take time, or you even forget to track it. Your receipts can pile up and then spreadsheets take a lot of time before they are being filled. So this automation solves that problem by basically turning a simple Telegram message into a structured, validated, and logged expense entry. This video, I would walk you through how exactly it works. So if you're someone that is really looking into bypassing the whole manual process in tracking your expenses, or you're just looking for another automation project to add to your portfolio, this video is for you. So now, as you can see, there's a flowchart here that I'm going to use to describe every single thing that is entailed in the automation. So the first thing is the Telegram trigger. So the automation is triggered by a message that is sent, right? And there's a pre-processing set. So the pre-processing set is to classify the type of query. So while with this automation, you can extract expense information, you can also ask the bot general questions about your expenses. For example, how much money did we spend on transport this month? Right. So it routes it. If it's an ask question, it goes to the question and answer agent. And if it's an extraction query, it goes to the image pre-processing. So image pre-processing is just checking whether there are duplicates because you don't want to put in the same information multiple times. And then finally taking it to the agent that is powered by Gemini for this particular case study to extract the information and return it in a structured format. Finally, we handle the login. So the login would involve putting it in the Google Sheets, which we're using as our database, and then send an alert to the CFO if the expense is above a certain threshold. All right, so for this project, we made use of Anything. So I'm just going to quickly show that right now. So this is what our Anything workflow looks like. And I would talk about every single thing that's going on. But first of all, let's check if this even works. So I'm going to start by executing the workflow. And then I would go to Telegram. Okay, then I'll go to Telegram. So this is the bot that we created. It's called the Telegram Expense Tracker. So if we add an image, it will automatically trigger the entire workflow. So I already have a receipt here, and I'm just going to add that. Send. So it's going to take some time. All right, that's done. So now we can come here. Exactly. It's going to take a bit of time to run. I'm just going to wait for that. Okay, so it's done the initial part and it's sending a confirmation request. So we'll go back. Exactly. So this is basically every single thing we can approve because this is exactly what we're looking for. Yes. When we approve, it takes us here. It records that it has been approved and the expense is logged successfully. Now, if we check the automation, let's quickly do that. So, yes, send the success confirmation message, which he has, and he has also logged it to the Excel sheet. So let's check the Google Sheet right now. Exactly. All right. So now that we see that this project actually works, let me just talk you through an in-depth explanation of what exactly is happening. So the first thing, like I said, is that this entire automation is triggered when a message is sent. In this case, it was an image, but it can be an image or it can be a text. Then the next thing that happens is to check if it's a duplicate message. So it checks if the already existing message ID or the message ID already exists in the Google Sheets. And if it returns more than one result, then it knows that, okay, this is something that already exists. And it will send a notice back to the user saying, this expense has already been recorded, duplicate entries are prevented. But if it's a new entry, it hasn't been recorded before, then it goes to route by message type. So the whole idea of the route by message type logic is to check whether it's a query that's asking for extraction or if it's a query that's just asking for clarification on the data or on the expert's data basically. So because in this case it was an extraction query, that's why it's going to follow this route. So as you can see here, we have up to like 3 routes. So the first one, the question and answer agent will be triggered. The fallback route will be the output one, which is like the routing route. So then after that, we will have to do a bit of pre-processing. So we need to download the receipt photo, because during this entire process, the image that's supposed to be in the binary form is not sent in a binary form anymore. So we want to make sure that we have it in a binary form so that we can actually send it to the agent and extract the necessary details. So we download the receipt photo, and then finally this is sent to the agent that's just going to extract the expense details. So we typed in the prompt, and then we also even gave it a system message so it knows what it's supposed to do. It's going to make use of this output parser that will give you the exact schema format. The next thing is to determine whether the extraction is valid. So a confirmation request is sent to the user, and if the user approves, as we can see here, the user approved. If the user approves that it's valid, then the next step is to prepare the expense flow and finally log the expense to the sheet. But if the user doesn't approve, then it sends it back to the user to edit what is there, and it finally does the same process of preparing the expense flow. So this is an edit field, basically gets the required information and assigns them to fields so that it's easier to log it in our Google Sheets. So we look at the time that it was logged, the user ID, the Telegram username, the vendor, the expense dates, the currency, the amount, the tax if that exists, the category, extra notes. So this can be like your narration, then the message ID, and whether the particular expense is over $500. So obviously because it's $500 here, but we're dealing with Naira, I ended up just using 500,000 Naira. Yes, so if it's above this certain threshold, then an email will be sent to the CFO, and then we also have the receipt field. And the next thing is to log the expense to the sheet. We just saw the sheet and we saw the expense that has been logged. We determine whether it's over $500, which obviously in this case we're using 500,000 Naira. So if it's over that amount, it sends an email to the CFO. In this case, I use myself as the CFO. So this is the message that will be returned. It would update the Google Sheet stating that the email had been sent, stating the time exactly that it was sent. But if there was no need for that, that is, if it is not above that threshold, it just sends a successful confirmation message. Let's try and run the other side, which involves passing in a query about our expense data. So to trigger that aspect, I think first of all, let's execute the workflow on N10. And then the next thing is we go back to Telegram, and we have to begin with /ask. And then we can ask a question. So I initially just tested it, right? Let's just see how much was spent on shopping this month. Just give that example. So if we send that message, we just have to wait a bit for it to respond. Exactly. So it tells us the answer basically. This amount of money was spent on shopping this month. That is all for the Telegram expense tracker that has smart alerts and query. And there are definitely many ways that you can improve this workflow. So I think the first thing is, if you want to make it more AI agent focused, you can actually just have 2 agents, maybe 1 agent that will handle every single thing. So instead of asking all this, checking for the duplicate message and checking if it's above the threshold, all of this can actually be handled by the agent. So if you want to reduce the number of nodes, which I would advise, you can just have 1 agent that is doing all of these things. I mean, the second agent can now handle a confirmation. So it can be a type of architecture where the confirmation agent can always hand off to the expense processing agent. And there are also other ways that you can improve this workflow. Like you can make it handle other types of currency, because right now it's sort of programmed to handle Naira. You can also enforce certain expense categories, so that a level of consistency in the data and what exactly is being recorded. And you can also include other things like scheduling monthly alerts. Maybe at the end of the month, you just give like a rundown of basically their expense analysis. So if you are seeking to also track your expenses and you won't stop doing it manually, this is something that you can also do yourself. I would send a tutorial video next where I actually break down how exactly you can build this, and I'll build the method where I'm using specifically AI agents and basically reducing the number of nodes. And I'll see you in my next video. Bye.